The next factor that influences whether an organization will have a certain level of intention in addressing ethical issues will be opportunity. Opportunity is the conditions in an organization that limit or permit ethical or unethical behavior. Okay, is there what kind of opportunity exists in doing things? If there is strong opportunity to commit things that are unethical by way of the lack of rules. So some organizations may have very lax, or they don't have sufficient policies or rules in addressing unethical behavior. Therefore, decision makers will tend to consider this as an opportunity for them to commit the unethical behavior. Um, and the immediate job context of the people who are participating in the decision making um, will influence or will be an indicator of the opportunity that they have. Okay. So immediate job context refer to where the individuals work, whom they work with, and the nature of their work. So where they work may have certain different levels of opportunity in terms of in terms of committing ethical or unethical behavior. Opportunity can be deterred with formal codes, policies, and rules adequately enforced by management. Okay, so the opportunity to um, commit unethical behavior can be reduced or can be deterred by having formal codes or for policies or rules that are enforced by the management. Um, However, misconduct can still occur without proper oversight. So even although formal codes, policies, and rules will reduce the amount of opportunity for misconduct, however, the misconducts can still occur if there is no less or no proper oversight. Um, and it also comes with knowledge or exploiting knowledge. So the when people in the organization has knowledge, or they have a lot of knowledge, that also influences opportunity. So on one hand, uh, when we think about it, the negative side, when an employee has knowledge to perpetrate or to bypass opportunity. So sometimes there are limitations in terms of opportunity, but employees have knowledge on how to bypass that limitation. Then that also introduces the situation when the employee may commit unethical behavior. So some people use knowledge uh, for good, but some exploit the knowledge that they have to circumvent the lack of opportunity. Okay, so these four factors. Okay, the first one is um, ethical issue intensity. Okay, to what extent is the ethical issue is considered as important or relevant? Secondly, the individual factors. Thirdly, the organizational factors, and fourthly, the opportunity. These four factors will influence business ethics intentions, behavior, and evaluations. It will influence how organizations evaluate uh, ethical issues. Um, it will influence their intentions, okay, their intentions on what to do when faced with certain ethical dilemma or issues. And then through their intentions or evaluations, their behavior will sometimes follow suit, but there are circumstances when intentions as well in evaluations are not followed in the same way by behavior. Behavior does not follow intentions and evaluations. Okay, so says here ethical business issues, dilemmas involving problem solving situations where the rules governing decisions are often vague or in conflict. When intentions and behavior are inconsistent with their ethical judgment, people may feel guilty. Okay, so like I've said, there are cases when uh, the decision makers have certain intentions in terms of ethical when they are faced with ethical issues, but their behavior is not the same. Okay, so a decision maker and employee may face with an ethical decision, but then because of the instruction from the boss, the instruction from the superior, they have to uh, make decisions. They have to decide on the unethical action, even though it goes against their intention. They intend to follow ethical principles, but their actions is the opposite. They proceed with the unethical action because they are influenced by the organizations, the bosses, the superiors. Okay, so when this happens, when there is a conflict between intention and behavior, when intention and behavior do not go the same way, then people who made that decision may feel guilty. Okay, they may feel guilty, and on a long-term basis, their next step is probably changing the behavior to reduce such feelings. Such employees or decision makers that are faced with this guilt, when they feel this guilt, they may try to reduce their guilt by changing their behavior on a long term. Okay, the road to success depends on how the business person defines success. Okay, so when they are faced with um, this ethical judgment, their intention is more towards the ethical one, but they are influenced to behave in a more unethical way. um, some of these decision makers will see which outcome of their action will bring the most success to them. Okay, which one will give them opportunity to achieve success, either doing following the ethical consideration, or doing the action that goes against ethical principles. Okay, so for example, they are uh, doing some marketing, and then they uh, they are faced with the dilemma of marketing, making marketing or advertisements that are untrue, do not faithfully represent the product that they're selling. Um, but on the other hand, if they make that false claims, they make that false representation, it will influence the customers, so that the customers will purchase the items, or will have higher regard of the items, and demand for that item will increase, and that will the higher demand, then the marketeer will will be more yeah, successful um, in terms of their careers, in terms of their salary, their promotion. Okay, so now when they are faced with that dilemma, um, they will see which one will bring them to their success. So that in the end, what decision they make will depend on how do they define success. Do they define success by promotions, by having bonuses, or do they define success by having peace in the heart, by having um, you know being social responsibility, being socially responsible, helping the community. How do they define success will influence the decision that they make when they are faced with such dilemma between the differing intentions and behavior. Okay. So we've looked at the ethical decision making model that explains, that describes the factors that influence organizations' way of the organization's intention and behavior in ethical decision making. So that model, um, it says here that an ethical decision making model, that decision making model that we've seen, does not help in determining if a business decision is right or wrong. Okay, so that model is not about looking at whether decisions are ethical or not ethical, but it is more intended to provide insights about ethical decision making in businesses. It's more about looking at the way organizations make decisions. So it's not looking at whether the decisions are right decisions or wrong decisions, because business ethics involves value judgments and collective agreement about acceptable patterns of behavior. So gaining an understanding of the factors that make up ethical decisions help in differentiating between an ethical issue and a dilemma.